So Carl Niehaus was on the EFF podcast. He spoke about a lot of issues, and it was a very, very interesting episode. So please do go to the EFF podcast and watch the full episode. It is definitely interesting. So I just want to highlight the issue of the land and why is it so difficult for us to get the land back. Just take a listen to the clip that is following, where I recorded from the EFF podcast.
At that point, the African National Congress was still a revolutionary organization.
Mm-hmm.
But the ANC got infiltrated.
Okay.
And that infiltration started already during the exile years.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a plan by the big white monopoly capitalist companies in this country, also together with international imperialism,
mm-hmm.
to infiltrate the ANC. To also make some of the leaders of the ANC dependent on the funding and the finances that they were giving them.
Mm.
And they were starting to buy over people. Also, the intelligence services infiltrated the ANC, the CIA,
mm-hmm.
MI6, MI7 from the British side,
mm-hmm.
and many other Western intelligence agencies.
Yeah. And so
now I just want to emphasize this because already in the mid-1980s,
mm-hmm.
when the ANC met with the big captains of industry from South Africa
mm-hmm.
in Lusaka,
yes.
if you listen to an interview that Comrade Ronnie Casuals
mm-hmm.
gave many years later, he says, I was absolutely shocked and surprised by how quickly the leadership of the ANC went belly up
mm-hmm.
and agreed with those captains of white monopoly capitalist big industry that the economy should not change, that there should not be a transfer of the land and of the big means of production into
mm-hmm.
the hands of the people.
Mm-hmm.
So then already the ANC had been infiltrated.
Okay.
But the worst thing that happened to the ANC was during the negotiating process, during Kudesa.
Yes.
When obviously people like Cyril Ramaphosa, Pravin Gordhan, and others
mm-hmm.
had already been made agents of white monopoly capitalism. But they were still appearing there as those who were working for the people, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
They were still there as so-called members of the African National Congress. And they accepted a constitution that was going to make it totally, utterly impossible
mm-hmm.
for us to return the land to the people and to change the economic dynamics in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, you also had sellouts such as Tito Mboweni,
okay.
who was an economic advisor coming from a very high-profile university in the United Kingdom and being taught everything about new liberal economic policies,
Mm-hmm.
And he then worked himself into the office of President Mandela to become his chief economic advisor.
Mm-hmm.
In 1991, Madiba went to the first World Economic Forum that he attended in Davos, January 1991.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened? Madiba had a speech that was given to him by the economic desk of the ANC,
mm-hmm.
which said, we're continuing with a policy of nationalization
mm-hmm.
of the land, nationalization of the mines, the big industries, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Tito took that speech sitting in his hotel room in Davos and scratched those paragraphs out, rewrote the speech all on his own for Madiba. The next thing, all of us who participated in writing that speech,
mm-hmm.
and I was one of those
so
who
Tito Mboweni
participated to write that speech.
Yeah.
Sorry, you wanted to ask me?
Yeah, so Tito Mboweni is an enabler or was an enabler of white monopoly
absolutely.
capital.
Tito has always been.
Mm-hmm.
Tito was clearly a sellout right from the beginning. And I challenge him to come and tell me that he was not. But I was telling you this story. So he changed that speech. So there all of us are sitting. We're listening to Madiba speaking at the World Economic Forum.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly we hear that we are no longer going to nationalize the commanding heights of the economy. The land will be protected through property rights, etc. And we said, what the hell is going on? There's no decision taken in the National Executive Committee of the ANC to change our economic policy. Mm-hmm. But the reality was, at that stage, Madiba couldn't be contradicted. Mm-hmm. His power, his authority in the ANC was such, mm-hmm. that it was very difficult once he had spoken to turn it around. So Tito boasted afterwards, and this sticks in my throat. Many years later, he was at a conference at the Hyatt in Rosebank, mm-hmm. together with all his chums in Goldman Sachs and mm-hmm. Old Mutual, Trevor Manuel, mm-hmm. Maria Ramos, that whole clique.
Yeah.
And he was boasting, he said, I trashed the ANC's nationalization program in a garbage bin in a hotel in Davao. And he laughed.
So when former president, the late Nelson Mandela, was reading the speech, couldn't you see that this speech has been changed?
I don't know. I can just tell you what happened. I can tell you what Madiba did. Mm-hmm. I am not going to go beyond the facts. Mm-hmm. The facts are very clear because I was part of the team of people who wrote the speech for Madiba, that the speech was totally changed. Mm-hmm. But it set in motion a process of the introduction of new liberal economic policies in the ANC, which was pushed even harder by President Thabo Mbeki after he came into the presidency following Madiba's retirement. Mm-hmm. And that new liberal economic policy program mm-hmm. has been sustained throughout in the ANC, and under Cyril Ramaphosa now, it is on steroids. It's worse. Now we are being totally sold out. The only time that there was a bit of a holding back, mm-hmm. a bit of reversing from this new liberal economic policy program was during the time of President Jacob Zuma.
Okay.
But President Zuma also never really managed mm-hmm. to totally change mm-hmm. that policy program. He just managed to put the brakes onto it. Mm-hmm. But I understand that he was under a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. And that there was a lot of reaction by the white monopoly capitalists against him when he came into power because he was never part of their plan. Mm-hmm. They never wanted him to become president. Okay. Another thing that